Hello and welcome to the Alpha Anywhere demo and Q&A webcast. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to present Sarah Mitchell today, who will be giving a presentation on some new features that just came out in Alpha Anywhere. But she'll also be here, in fact, we both will be here to answer your questions, so you can type those questions into the questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. So let's get started. Hello, Sarah, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can. Let me go ahead and, well, I think you already are the presenter.
Am I already the
I
presenter?
think you just need to share your screen is
Share your
what you need to do.
screen.
There it is. I see Alpha DevCon 2021.
Awesome. Yeah, so before we get started with any presentations today, I just want to mention to everybody that DevCon 2021 is coming up. If you have not attended these in the past, I highly recommend it. But I just wanted to share this with you. And that you can register now. We still have a discount going. I'll put this in the chat window for everyone. But also, if you you may have seen an email from us, we have a call out for presentations. So if anybody is itching to share something they've built, something cool they've done with Alpha Anywhere at DevCon this year, we would love to hear your pitch. So check that out. You can contact us at guides@alphasoftware.com for more information about that if you're interested. And of course, you can always visit the website to see what's going on for DevCon. So as Dave mentioned, there was a new release, Alpha Anywhere. I think we're up to 4.6.2.7. I think is the current release version. And something I wanted to share with people is that in this release we have an exciting new feature of that lets you embed detailed views, lists, other content within a list row. If you've ever used a grid, then you are familiar with this feature. Grids have always had the ability to embed content using the feature called the row expander. You could embed grids, a detailed view for editing a grid row, other related information about the record, unrelated information about the record, reports, etc. Anyway, with this new embedded detailed views feature, you can do all that with a list. And I just want to show how that works, how you can set it up, and what you would do in a mobile app where you're, or even in any app where you're using panels, how you would handle that case. Where would you put your content so you could embed it? So this is the doc page on this. It's pretty brief because there isn't very much to this feature. It's the way it works is you specify the container that contains all the content you want to embed in the list, and then that just gets pulled into the list. And then the list has a few options for configuring how that content is shown. So I have this component I have set up that's got a few things in it. It has a list control, and that is based on the Northwinds database. It displays some customer records. I've got this detailed view in a container for editing the content that I've included in the list. And then I have this secondary list, which actually is the orders for the customer records. And if we look at this now in live preview, you'll see those three things. So up here, this is my list. Here's my detailed view, and here is the order details. So if I click on one of these, this gets populated, this gets filtered, this updates to a route, chops, so on and so forth. So what I want to show now is how you can take these elements and then have them appear when you click on the list instead of showing them down here. So if we go back to design and we open up the list control builder, which I've double clicked on the control to open, and we go over to the detail view tab, there's this new property down here called detail view position. And this is what lets you change or at least specify that content should be shown within the list when you expand a row. If you don't have this detail view tab, it just means you need to go to list properties and check has detail view. That will enable this tab. So what you'll want to do to embed content is change this to inside list beneath list row. And this exposes a few other settings for you to configure your embedded content, basically. We say detail view, but it's really any content. So first you need to specify what container control contains the controls you want to display. Here I want to embed the actual detail view for the list row, so I'm select container 1, which if you see over here on the left is the one that contains my detail view controls. And then you have the second property. If you open it up, it's the embedded detail view properties. But what it lets you do is it configure animation speed. So when you expand the row, it's going to like animate down. You can turn that off if you don't like it by changing this to 0. The default is 300 milliseconds, I think. Yes, milliseconds. And that animation is fixed. You can't customize the animation used, but you can control how long it takes to open or to turn it off completely. You can configure what needs to happen to open the row, either clicking on the row in general, which is how this is set up out of the box, or you can change this to say only when you click on a open close icon. And then that icon is defined here in this open close icon property. And right now we're using this chevron right icon sizable. Something to know about this icon is that as part of the animation, the icon gets rotated. And you'll see that when we click on the icon to display the embedded content. So one more thing that you can do in here is after the animation has completed, after the content is shown, there's some additional JavaScript you could add in here to execute some sort of event. Maybe run a report. Maybe you're displaying content that shows an embedded report. So you might want to have that only execute after it's been shown, as opposed to for every single list row, which wouldn't be particularly great if you can't see it. So that's where you could hook this in. You can use, for those of you not familiar, this is just a JavaScript editor, but you can embed action JavaScript by creating a JavaScript action and setting that all up here and then embedding the code to run that action. So you have access to all of the low code options for running reports and such using that here. I'm gonna click OK. And then the final thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to list layout. And when you add this option here, you also get a new control over here. It's called the row open close indicator. And you'll want to insert that into your list. It's a visual aid to kind of indicate that things can happen regardless of how you've configured the open action. So I'm going to insert that in here, and I'm going to move it to the top so it appears at the far left-hand side of my list. But that's just going to be a control that shows what the list state is, and it's also what we've configured the list to use as the interaction to expand the list. So I'm gonna click OK. And now I've embedded container 1, so let's go look at live preview to see what happens. So the first thing you should notice is that that detail view container is not being rendered anymore. It's taken out of the content here on the screen, and that's because it's actually being embedded in these list rows. So now when you click on an icon here, it expands down. Oh no, it did something weird. Oh gosh. Oh, okay. Well, take this out for now. And I'll send an email after this presentation. What's a Wednesday demo without something wild and crazy?
Yeah.
So when this expands, when it's working. It shows those details right in here. So there's my elf key detail view information. Here it is for Anton. Go down here to chops. There it is for chops. You know, so. And you'll notice it only expands when I click on that arrow. If I go to a different row, it's collapsed again. So that's how that works.
Cool. Now, can you do in-place editing there, or is this really just for viewing the data that's underneath?
Oh, you can totally do editing. I have this
Yeah.
set up where the detail view is in view only mode
Uh-huh.
because I didn't want to include a whole bunch of buttons and stuff.
Okay, but if you wanted to drill down, you could then, say to show all of the fields, like the list, let's say, shows 3 or 4 fields, just so you know what record you're on. But then you could expand it, and then you could make some changes to the data, and you could save
Yeah,
it. And all that. Oh,
yeah,
okay, cool.
yeah. It's all editable. It's just how it's rendered.
Gotcha.
And as I was saying before, like you're not limited to the detail view. You could put other content in there. So let's see here. Let's get wild and crazy here and see what happens. So I'll add another container. Really important, it has to be a none container. These are the only types of containers that this feature works with. And in here, I'm going to put another list. And instead of going through all the setup to make this related, I'm going to put unrelated data in here. I'm just going to get some sample data out of here. Let's do the Kanban. Untested
All right.
example here. Let's go to fields. Let's say this is a Kanban. Where is my layout type? Ooh, keep going. Kanban. Let's configure it. The category field is category. The order field is item order. Default category names. The sort field. Let's go with amount. Header HTML is the group. I believe that's the group name. Yeah, it's the value of the break expression. Class name, footer, nah. Ooh, fancy colors. We love fancy colors. So we'll just take this example code out of here because it was written for the sample data. Put it at the bottom. Click OK 1,000 times. You may not be able to hear it, but my computer is running at insane octane levels. There we go. That's all set up. Click OK. Let's go to the layout. Let's get that predefined Kanban layout. This one, because it's got colors. Okay. And let's see our placeholders. Company. And a break. And amount. How about that? Click OK. And let's just quickly preview this to make sure it's set up okay. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to make this 100% wide, the container, just so it maximizes its width. And then go back to our list. And let's change this detail view to instead of container 1, use container 2. Click OK. This is going to tell you a few things that it had to change so that the container will play nicely with the list. Save that. I'll go in here and take a look. So now my detail view is still down below, but you'll see now that Kanban container is gone, right? So if I expand these now, it's in here, and this is all interactive. I can move stuff around in here. So if you've got some sort of crazy awesome layout you want to build.
Oh, that's wild. So drop
Yeah,
down
so
where the
yeah.
Kanban is not a detail view, but any other kind of view.
You can put anything in
Presumably
here.
you
That's
could
the
do
beauty of
a map or
You
something
could
like
put a
that.
map in there.
Yeah,
You could
yeah,
put a video. You could put anything. You could embed another
cool.
um it's anything
Wow,
in that container is going to be rendered in there. So
nice.
yeah, so that's the basic overview of the control. Or not the control, the functionality. Something I wanted to show to you guys who are using panels is how you would make this work with your panel layouts. So in the examples that you're going to see in the documentation, we just show you these like a couple containers and then the lists. But if you've got a panel set up, then there's a few extra things you need to do. So I'm going to start putting everything in a panel.
And while you do that, maybe you could also answer this question. Is this feature available in the Community Edition?
Yes, everything in here is in the Community Edition. The
Excellent.
only limitations that exist in Community Edition is you don't have access to building desktop applications, which are built using an old style desktop control panel. And you also are limited in your deployment options as to what servers you can publish to. I'm currently using the full Alpha IDE developer, so I have access to publishing locally to the development server, but you're not going to have that in Community Edition. But what you will have is access to this new button called Live Test, which does exactly the same thing. And what it does is it publishes a page or your entire application on your server, on like locally right there, and also you can specify like Alpha Cloud and a few other options, and it will let you just run that in a browser, which gives you the full context of everything you need to test your web applications before shipping them.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, so let's add another panel card around this one. And I'm going to put both of these guys inside panel card 2. And then because this is a layout problem, put a navigator around this. So often what many people will do is they'll put their lists in panels and they'll have it fill a container. And when you fill a container, you actually can't put anything else in there. If I like wanted to include my container for my detail view in with that list that's filling everything and tried to do anything, I'm going to get this fabulous error message that says I can't do that. So what you need to do in that case is to put your container that contains the content you want to embed on a different panel. And if you've got an app where you only have one panel or only a few views you want to show people, you can prevent people from accidentally navigating to those other panel cards by using a panel navigator and telling it that it is a type programmatic, which will only change the active panel card using code that you explicitly invoke, either through action JavaScript or adding it to some action yourself. And this will allow you to have some secondary panel card that contains all your embeddable content without allowing users to navigate to something that is effectively going to be blank because we don't render content that's been embedded in the list. So if we go here and go to live preview now, we should just see that list on panel 1. And it will take up the whole screen. So this is our list. I can't like swipe left or right to get anywhere. But when I expand this, there's my embedded content hidden on that other panel. And that's all you really need to do, because you have to wrap whatever content you want to embed in a container with a subtype none. That's the only one that's supported.
Hey, Sarah, when those drop down, are you able to roll them back up again? Like by clicking on the icon or something like
Oh
that?
yeah.
You
I
say
didn't
that
show
thought they
that.
give you
Yeah,
one
the
time? Okay.
icon is a toggle.
Okay, great.
And I had mentioned earlier with the animation, you
Yeah,
only
that it looks
specify
like it
one
rotates
icon
at
and it
90
gets
degrees.
rotated.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is that chevron right. And when you click on it, see how it rotated like 90
Yeah.
degrees clockwise? And then when you
So
click on
so
it again,
choose an angle that makes sense, rotated 90 degrees, I guess. Like if you had like a hitchhiking thumb out, it would turn into a thumbs down. I don't know if that's what you meant.
right. Yeah. So
Or
if
thumbs
you
up.
don't like that, there is another feature in that was added. Ooh, don't click that.
Mhm.
You can now add a static image and tell it it's a two-state image, which is a little confusing because we do have switches that are two-state switches. But what
Okay.
this means is that it's an image that is in two states. The row expand collapse icon is a two-state image that we use, and the two states are open and closed, on and off. And so what you could do is you could add your own custom image here.
Oh, so
You
you
know,
could have
yeah,
separate images for opened and for closed.
yeah. So maybe you
Okay.
want open for that state and swapped image name. Maybe you want a rocket. I don't know.
I was thinking a closed envelope, but a rocket's good.
No, man, rockets all the
Okay.
way. Okay.
Rockets.
So
Yep.
you have rockets. You can specify how it rotates, um, that it's toggled when it's clicked. You could
Hmm.
add an on-click event here, and in here you would insert a method that was added. Or you can use this. Okay, it's two state image set. And
Okay.
if you insert that,
Uh-huh.
image name is a misnomer. It's actually the name of this field.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so so that's how you could execute this. Um, I'm actually inserting the wrong placeholder function here. I wanted to use I'm wondering if there's a detail view one. I'll have to research this. I'm
All right. All right.
pretty sure
No,
there's a way to
that's fine.
expand the detail view
Yeah.
programmatically. But you could have a two-state image in here, and then you can execute what is shown. Um, this would be image one. It's the name of the image
Gotcha.
control, and this would be your list obj, which you would get.
So related to this image thing, although I think in many cases something like a chevron or a single image that just rotates 90 degrees will probably be what people would want in their application. But so anyway, but there's a question like if you did, let's say, open up a row and you got to
And I got Dave. I think he just cut
close
out.
those detail views and you made some changes, and then you went and closed, and then you the row, would there be a way? Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back now. I lost the first half
All
of the
right, looks like
question.
my audio is back. It's turned green again. Something funny if I go to webinar. Okay, great. Yeah, sorry. Well, so let's say though that you had set this up so that it was a detail view and not a Kanban,
Uh-huh.
and you expanded the Kanban and you sorry you extended that row, and you filled out some information maybe in a detail view, and then
Uh-huh.
you closed up that row, but you didn't do anything like save it or anything like that. Could you set it up so that it warns the user that, hey, you've got some unsaved data, or would it be treated like a regular row, as in it'll be marked as you have something unsaved here? Does it, and then you can synchronize it later? Or could you set it so that when you collapse the row, it saves anything you put into the detail view?
So you can definitely configure it so that when the the list row, like you navigate away from the list row, that it would commit that detail view information
Okay.
automatically to the
Yep.
list, and then you could synchronize it later, which is
That would
the
be that.
icons
I
you
think
get
that
in
would
the
be
list are
sufficient.
only shown when you've saved the data back to the list, but not necessarily propagated it up to the server.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But
So
in
it
terms of
so
like
it works
preventing
like a
the list from
typical
collapsing
detail.
with an
Yeah.
edit, I would need to do a little more investigation about that. But that is a really good, um,
But it works like a regular detail view, though, right? I mean, the fact that
yeah,
it just
it's,
happens to be underneath. So
yeah.
in a real detail view, typically you'll navigate from the list to the detail view. Often
Mhm.
it's on another panel card. We've seen that pattern pretty often. And you make some changes there in the detail view, and then you go back to the list. The list knows, hey, some changes have been made here, but and it's marked.
Yeah.
All right, gotcha. Thank you. That answers that one, I think.
Yeah, so that's this auto
Yeah,
commit detail row view on row select, and that's on by default.
great.
You'd have to manually turn that off if you didn't want that to happen.
Oh, okay. So it is on by default. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yep. Wonderful. So you don't actually have to do any programming if you want it to work that way.
Yeah. And since
Nice.
we're here, I do want to point out for those of you who are building apps that are never offline, that are always online, you can
Yep.
turn on these, this in the synchronization policy in the detail view, you can check these options here that will, like when you save, it will also just push the data up to the server right then and there, so you don't have to do the two-step save to the list and then
Save and
synchronize
then
to the server.
synchronize. That is super
Yeah,
handy for web
yeah, and
applications that are using lists. Yeah.
yeah, and there's two options in here. One is it syncs all your data up to the server when you save, and the other one is it pulls down any new changes when it
Yep.
does that sync. So yeah, if you're just building strictly web apps that are always connected, turning these on can eliminate the need to have those sync buttons in your application.
Neat. Very cool.
So yeah, that was the extent of my demo
Okay. That sounds
for
good. Let me see
today.
if there are any questions. If people want to start asking questions now would be the time. Although I've been sort of interrupting you as we went.
Yeah, all good
Here's
questions. This is a brand new feature, so
brand new feature. Exactly.
yeah, it was added at the tail of the development cycle too. So it's a little
Gotcha.
bit newer than some other things that are in there.
It's new to you, and a lot of stuff isn't.
It's
So,
very new.
all right. So I've got a good question here. Let's say almost. I don't want to call it a beginner's question, but it's if you've created a, let's say you've created a UX control and you've got a detail view, and one of the detail views, you want to be able to allow the user to look up values in that list. You know, basically have a drop down.
Oh
Maybe
yeah.
even take a look at the values that had been entered previously into that field if you wanted to do it that way. Could you show how you go about doing something like that?
Yeah, so there's a few options available depending on how your application is going to be designed. So when I say that, I mean it doesn't need to run online only or offline as well.
Right.
Um, and this can all be done in a
Let's
variety
start
of
with
ways.
the online only case.
The
Offline, I
online only
imagine
case, yeah. So
you'd have to bring some the data with you on the device and all that. So let's start
so
with the easy way.
yeah, let's use country here in
Okay.
this example. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it from a text box to a drop down box.
Hmm.
I think this might be the easiest way for some people to think about things. And then that drop down box, you can specify the choices that are available. And those can be computed dynamically from your data source. So I'm going to say it's from this alpha DAO, the alpha anywhere data access object that connects to my database. I'm going to go in here and I'm say it's going to connect to my Northwind database, which is where all my customer data is stored. And then I'm going to have a select statement here, and I'm going to say I want you to pull it from the customers table, and I want you to display all the options that were currently in there for country. Now, in some other application, maybe you want to present more than the countries that have already been given. But what this does is it'll create that list of countries. And if I preview data right now, it's going to show me what's going to be in there. And this is every country that's ever been entered into the database
Right. And as there are
for
only
all those
21
records.
countries listed, there's another
Yeah.
200 that never were.
And then
Okay.
I always like to say select
Now, I
country.
happen to know that the Northwinds data has got multiple customers per country. So
It does.
how smart is the list when it brings it down? Does it know to filter
It's
out the
smart. It
duplicates?
uses this distinct keyword, so
Ah,
it only
gotcha.
pulls down one instance of
Uh-huh.
each unique entry.
Wonderful.
Hmm.
All
So
right.
that's one option. This requires a connection to the internet
Uh,
for it to work. And I'm going to simplify this here. Back to container one. And while I'm here, oh, never mind. Okay, it just won't save. I was thinking I needed to do something to turn off read only or something, but I don't think I need to.
Right.
So if we go in here, we see this is Mexico, but if I click on this, it's going to give me all the other country options. And so I could make that Brazil or
Fantastic. Yeah.
Poland.
And
And
it's just
if you see
the
here, all
ones that
these
are
other,
already in the database. Hmm.
yeah, so there's more than one Mexico in this database. There's
For
like
sure.
5.
Yep.
Yeah. So those are the 5 there. So that's one way you can do it. Another way you can do this to handle this is if you got a case where you need to work offline and you can't rely on a connection being available to make a call back to the server to get all those options for that
Hmm.
drop down whenever it decides to render.
Yeah.
The second option is to populate it from the client-side data cache, which is done through the static choices option, but there is a client-side data cache, cache name, display value, store value column option here. And I'll paste this in here. So this is the syntax for that. You would need to go set this up in the client-side data cache before you could add it here. So if we go over to menu and then down to client-side data cache editor, which is in the middle here, I could create an item here. Edit item, SQL query, Northwind, the customers table again. I want the country, and I want it to be distinct. So I only have one instance of each entry.
Right.
And I'll click OK. So that's all set up. Oh, I should probably persist this. Let's see where that setting is in here.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about the client-side data cache?
Yeah, the client-side data cache is it's a tool for setting up variables that contain data that's been queried from other tables in a database, or maybe you've got let's see what are the other options. Oops, don't add an item. I don't know what persist2 is. So you could do like a basic SQL query that just pulls down one value, or you could do a nested SQL query, which is like select all from customers and then select all the orders for each customer and then all the order details for each order,
Hmm.
and then store that as a JSON object that's got nested arrays of all that data. Static data, which is any kind of static data you want to in here, or some sort of XBasic that returns JSON. But the data cache like pulls all that information down and saves it locally, which can be persisted to the file system in a
Hmm.
mobile device, making it
Yep.
available offline.
Right.
And what that, there is even offline applications. Uh, but
Okay, that's yeah, that's
it's
what I
just a
figured.
way to have like lists of data and other information you might need in your application. In the case of the dropdown, if you want to make those options available offline, you can use the data cache where all the options are retrieved in advance.
Hmm.
And then your dropdown box can just display those the information that had been retrieved without ever calling back to the server. There are other things you can do, like download like a giant list that has several different types of values in it and then selectively filter which ones you want to show.
Now, the cache, as my understanding, is really a cache, in that
Yeah.
it's downloaded from some other, maybe you have XBasic, make an API call and fill in the cache, or maybe it goes right to SQL Server, but you don't update stuff in the cache. Is that right? It's pretty much, or if you do, it doesn't really get persisted back anyplace. You
Well,
use
you
it kind of
can
like a little
update
database.
the cache. And it was, hold on, let's go back to this guy because it's all
I
set
mean,
up.
it can be updated as in refreshed, but I mean the
Yeah.
individual data item. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you, down here, delay query until explicit refresh or read, store data on
Mhm.
device. This is where you configure where it's saved offline.
Mhm.
The cache is kept around until it's updated. It's never really deleted. And one of
Okay.
the nice things about it is that if you don't have a connection and it's been downloaded recently, it will just use what it's got. But if you do have a connection, it will be like, hey, database, do you have new things? And if there are new
Yeah.
things, it'll fetch those down for you. Sort of like as up to date as possible with your connection, your connectivity,
Yep.
connected network availability.
Excellent. I actually
Yep.
have another question related to that, but if we could go back to the drop-down stuff just for a
Uh-huh.
second. That's great. We've got a drop-down. We can choose our countries, but for example, we've only entered in 21 countries. So a new country comes along, let's call it Fredonia.
Uh-huh.
And can you have that control so that if it isn't in the drop-down, I can still type one in?
Yeah, you can. And that's not a drop-down control. That's
Not
a
a
text box.
drop-down.
It's a text box, which is the other thing I wanted to show. So you go
Uh-huh.
back to your text box.
Yeah.
Text box has a feature on it called lookup. And if you turn on lookup, it exposes some options for lookup types, including open a grid component and search it, pick your value from that. An auto suggest list, which suggests options as you type them out. And then the edit combo list, which is your classic dropdown that is also editable. And that lookup definition here is defined fairly the same as it was for the
Mm-hmm.
drop-down box, with the exception that you've got some like
Static
window
dynamic
properties down
invariable like
here,
before.
some filters, some
Uh-huh.
additional rendering options. It's a little more robust in that way, but the setup
So
is
that's a
practically
good
the
one.
same.
If it's the case where you want to see if it's there first and then use
Yeah,
it, so you don't have to type it in,
yeah.
that's
So then
good.
here
And
I
keep your
could be
data
like
consistent.
Northwind
Uh-huh.
customers. We'll just set this up here. Field to display, country, field to return, country, not the same. User doesn't have to select. Okay. Search style, if you want it to have like anywhere in the field is a fun one. So yeah, now this is still a drop down,
Uh-huh.
which renders way over here.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. Yeah.
But I don't see England in here, so I'm like, oh no, they're in England.
I see. Yeah.
And then when that gets saved back to the database, and at whatever time it decides to go back and query your tables for
Uh-huh.
the options that are in there, England will automatically get inserted in that list at that point.
Fantastic. That's great. Okay, on to a synchronization question. Is there a way for sync to kick in times when the ISP fails to keep the connection active? So like you had connectivity and then it didn't work, or maybe you've got or maybe you never synchronized because you didn't have connection. Is there some way to say, hey, when I get a connection, I'd like to synchronize?
There's an event
Mhm.
called what
There are
is it
two, I
called?
think. One checks whether you have a connection, and one checks whether or not you have a connection to the
On
server.
connection change.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it's this one.
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay.
These
Yeah.
aren't alphabetical, so,
All right.
but I believe it's this on connection change one,
Mhm.
and this changes whenever your internet connection status changes, whether you're online or not. There's a parameter you can check for that called e.online. It's gonna have a value of true if you're online and false if you're not.
Mhm.
But you could certainly put something in this event to check for when that state changes, to attempt to do things.
So if it changes to true, if it changes, then you check to see if the change was to true, and if the change is to
Yeah.
true, then you write your synchronization code from there.
Yep. Yeah.
Now we also have some functions, client-side functions that deal with connections as well. And I think one lets you know whether or not you can establish a connection to the wanted to make your code even more robust. Is that right? Something like that. So if
Could
you
you repeat the
like, yeah, it
question,
might be
please?
online. I'm sorry, I think my audio is fading out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, could you repeat the
Yeah, I
question?
was about to say, go to webinars. Weird today. Okay, we'll start again. Okay, so there are also some functions, JavaScript functions, that allow you to check what kind of connection you've got, like not necessarily even 5G or something like that, but whether or not you could connect to the server, not just the internet, which is really what you want to know when you're making those
Mm,
changes.
yeah,
Can you take us on a quick review of those if you can find them?
I remember what they are, yeah. Connection. All right, so we have in here, we actually have some that are new. We've got a network speed test function that was added this week, I think, that tests your speed to let you know if you've got um, a connection, and then also how long it takes to go up to the server and send a packet and get a response back that the packet was received. So people who may not want to
Hmm.
upload in poor quality environments will be interested in that function. There's a get connection type that tells you what type of connection you have. If you're on Ethernet or Wi-Fi or on 2G or a generic cell
Hmm.
connection. There's this get online status that gets what the online status is, whether or not the server is available, which is the way this works is it sends something to the server, and if it gets a response back, then it executes your success function. If it doesn't hear anything back, it times out, which might
Hmm.
mean that your server isn't available online. Could also mean that your server is hung or is doing something else that is making all your responses so long that your apps are deciding the server isn't there. It's
Hmm.
going to execute that error function.
So that's a good one to use if you want to know, I'm not just connected, but I'm connected to a server that's going to
Yeah.
respond to my requests. And
Hmm.
that's really what you want to know, not just whether or not you have internet, when you're building
Right.
these. So
Yeah.
good, good. Okay,
And
cool.
then there's if you want to simulate online status, there's a function in that in there too. That should only ever be used when you're testing. You should never ship that because it simulates being connected to the internet, and when it's off, then your app thinks it's off, even though you might be online. So
Hmm.
a word of warning there.
Excellent. So, wonderful. So here's a question. Sometimes when you upgrade from version to version, something may not work the way that you expected it to. Maybe your app has quit working and you roll back to an earlier version. When you do that, should you contact Alpha about that and say, look, I don't have a specific bug to report. I'm just saying my app isn't working under this normal circumstance, I guess. Would that be helpful?
That would be great to know. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Because
Yeah, if
typically
you
when
upgrade
what
and something isn't working, we need to know. And it
yeah.
might just be like we need to tell you what your upgrade path is. But it
Uh-huh.
might also be like a regression or something like that. Something
Sure.
happened,
Yeah.
some unintentional side effect
Right.
that we need to address. And if
Because
you can pinpoint what that
typically,
is, it would
yeah, I
be
was
very
about to say,
helpful.
typically we try to ask for a very specific use case when you submit a bug. And
Yeah.
actually, would you mind just taking us on a quick tour of that? Because it doesn't hurt every quarter or so for us to remind people if Alpha isn't working the way that you think it is, and you're pretty sure it's not you, it's Alpha. You
Yeah.
could report a bug, but to be helpful to us when you do that, we have a mechanism up in the help menu. Could make
Oh
a
yeah,
search.
we do. Yeah. So if you go to help,
Hmm.
send a bug report,
Yeah.
then we give you this text wall. And then down here, I usually use a browser-based email account so that
Hmm.
I can use a browser-based email account because I don't have Outlook set up on this machine.
Hmm.
But what this does is it just generates a little email, a little bit of information we need. You want to copy that to a clipboard and then open up your pretend email editor called Notepad.
Okay.
Put that in your,
Right.
so what you're going to do is you're going to send your email to bugs@alphasoftware.com. And then the subject is this Alpha Anywhere bug report thing. And then we need everything in this email body. And then down here after bug description is where you say, I've run into a problem. This is
Uh-huh.
what's happening. Here's my sample component that demonstrates the problem, or if you've got an issue with
Yeah,
reports,
if you can
a way to
step
do
us through it, that's fine. Now, in the case of I have a massive web applications that's working and I've
that. Yeah.
upgraded it and now it's not working, well, you're not going to probably submit your whole
No,
application.
you
But I
don't,
think
and
in
we
that
don't
case,
want your whole app.
if you want to just send it as a like, here's a heads up, I did this and this part isn't working. You know, can you take a look at it? We can do those too. But if you're typically during development, we want to have it like super detailed descriptions as to what's going wrong, so that we can figure out, you know, whether or not we've poorly explained it or if it's really not working the way it's supposed to, and we'll fix it.
Yeah, and if you can take the time to pinpoint what the problem is, one way you can do that is by copying your projects and then just deleting things until you figure out what was causing the problem. That
Yeah.
helps immensely for us to track it down.
Mhm.
Um, telling us that you're having an issue, and kind of describing what it is without having any real leads on where that might be occurring, it makes it really hard to
Makes it hard for
kind
us
of
to
fix
help
it.
you, but
Yeah.
it is still helpful
It's
for
good to
us.
know. Yeah,
So it
but
doesn't, so please
yeah.
don't be afraid to send those in. Just say
Oh, yeah, no, definitely tell us.
you might start with a, hey, this is a heads up, you know, like a,
Yeah,
okay, great, wonderful.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you can always also email guides@alphasoftware.com.
You can always email guides. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Wonderful.
yeah.
I'm not seeing a lot more for questions. I'll give you all guys a minute or so to enter them in. Anything else you want to talk about?
I did see a question come in.
Yeah.
Oh, I saw so many questions. But it
Uh,
was about how do I change the colors in one of these other themes, like the Alpha Blue 2,
yeah.
because
Hmm.
I don't like this certain shade of blue or whatever, and you don't have access here um, to change the uh, control the colors like you do with alpha. Let me show you. So if I have alpha selected, I can
Hmm.
actually come in here and customize the style colors and fonts, access all these little variables, which are the
And
things
that's
that are
because
changed in those
Alpha
other
is one of
themes.
our more modern themes. The other ones are sort of older themes that don't have that feature. Is that the?
No, it's the exact opposite actually. So alpha is like our core style
Yeah.
sheet or whatever. And
Okay.
all these other ones that say alpha dash something are
Yeah,
inherited themes. They inherit from alpha and they change something.
I see.
So because of that, you don't you don't have access to all those other tools
Hmm.
because some of the things they change are those SAS variables. So in
Mm.
that case, if you want to edit these things, what you need to do is you need to um, go to this edit in style builder option
Mhm.
and then make a local copy. Um, And that will give you access to the SAS variable changes that we've made in that inherited theme. What this is not going to give you is any of the underlying CSS markup that is in the alpha theme, because the way an inherited theme works is it says I'm based on alpha and I have all these extra changes in myself that are applied to that, but all the code still lives in the alpha theme. So if you want to get access to everything in those other styles, you need to check this detach the style from its parent style property before you copy it. And what that will do is pull in all the code from everything that this is based on into one style that you can then work with from there. So you'll have all the code here on the code tab in the web theme builder as soon as it loads. And then if you go over to the adjust tab, you'll see all those color changes that we made here.
Very cool.
And then from here, you can navigate the parts as needed.
And we've got another question that just came in, and I think you'll be able to tackle it in the 10 minutes that we have. We'll see. Um, this person would like us to show them how you would loop through a SQL result set. So you're an ex-basic, you've gotten back a result set from a call, and how do you go through it?
First I go to documentation.
That's a great start.
And I
Yeah.
go to the XBasic guide
Uh-huh.
here, and then I try to remember where I documented that. Working with SQL, processing the query results. Here we go. Here's how you would do
Cool.
that.
Can you grab that page and paste it into the chat window?
Let's do
Sure.
that. I'm going to go back to the top and click the share
Using
button.
that link there, which
That
is the
link.
only way to do it. Don't use the one
Your
in the
link.
URL. That's the permalink.
One
Yep.
day I'll figure out how to make the URL be the right link.
Okay.
There we go. So yeah, processing the query results. There's this function. So after you run the query, you get this, the connection object has this variable called result set, which contains everything you need to access the data that was queried from your database. And that has a function called next row. And the way this works is you submit your query, you like select all customers from Mexico, and it comes back with a result set. And the way you get your data out of that is you walk the result set. So you call next row to get the first row of data in your query result, and then you call it again to get the next one and the next one and the next one until there's nothing. Next row will return false or some value that to indicate that there is no next row, there's no data to get. And then that's it. You've processed your query. You're done. There's no going backwards in a using next row when you're walking
In
the
result
result
set,
set.
yeah, it's only
Yeah. So this is the way you can walk through the result set. You know, if you want to put it into an array or something, then what you would just do is inside your while loop, you would add each using the data. You would get the value out that you wanted to put in there. There are other functions available for quickly getting your data out of a result set into a different format, including to an X basic variable. So there's a toString option that converts everything in the result set into a string, puts it in a string, you're done, one single call. I believe there's another one that turns it into a property array, which now gives you an array with objects within it that have all the data that was returned. So these are faster ways to get your data out without having to walk it manually. And even if you do want to walk through your data manually and build up some sort of custom array, I find it's much easier to do something like convert the entire result set to a property array and just work with a property array than it is to walk the result set manually within the query.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And then beyond that, there are lots of helper functions. Let's see here, including SQL records get, which will get all your records back in this result expression that you set up here.
Excellent. And let's see if there's something else here. Yeah, that is great. Yeah, someone else pointed out that they try to only work in property arrays because it gives them a lot more flexibility. So
it does give you a lot of flexibility. And if your end goal is JSON at some point, there's a function that converts property arrays to JSON that's very simple to use. So, that's by far, I feel like the easiest way to work with data from the database. And you can go backwards if you decide you want to walk the array backwards at that point.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, we've run out of questions, almost ran out of time, but I think it'll be time to break. Listen, Sarah, thank you so much for presenting today. I really appreciate it.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
everyone who attended, especially those who asked questions. Help keep it lively. If you do have more questions, go ahead and send them to guides, GUIDES @alphasoftware.com. We look forward to seeing you here back next week. Take care and stay well. Bye-bye.